This documentary by Alex Tharp and Tyler Kerstetter covers Wizards of the Coast, their acquisition of Dungeons & Dragons, the use of Dungeons & Dragons as a storytelling mechanism, the incorporation of Dungeons & Dragons into the pantheon of literature, and the use of those textual literacies in the 21st century classroom. Wizards of the Coast was founded in 1990 by Peter Atkinson. In 1991, development of Magic the Gathering started, which was released in 1993 with the help of Dr. Richard Garfield and 6 others. The company became a full-time job in 1994 for many of the employees. After years of success, Wizards of the Coast acquired Dungeons & Dragons in 1997. Only 2 years later, Hasbro acquired Wizards of the Coast, with Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons taking their place among the world's most beloved and recognizable entertainment brands. In 2014, Wizards of the Coast released the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, along with Tyranny of Dragons, the first major storyline for the new edition. This marked the game's 40th anniversary, sparking a surge in popularity among fans from young first-time players to veteran Hollywood celebrities. Since its inception in 1974, Dungeons & Dragons has continued to be playtested and refined, ultimately undergoing 5 iterative editions to date. Between each edition, core mechanics, settings, character classes, and general rules have all changed, but storytelling has always remained at the center of Dungeons & Dragons.
And so, all of this begs the question, what exactly is Dungeons & Dragons? Technically, Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. In this game, players inhabit the role of characters that they create. Players describe their actions, and the actions are resolved through a series of formal, systematic rules. These rules are enforced and applied by a player called the Dungeon Master, who describes the world and how it reacts to the player's actions in-game. At its heart, however, Dungeons & Dragons is a social experience. The main mechanic of the game is not the dice or the paper that you use to play it, but instead the players interacting with each other and their characters. It is also a literary experience. These players gather and play the game, and as a result, a story is told collaboratively. Dungeons & Dragons is currently experiencing an explosion in popularity. Upon the release of its 5th edition, the core rulebooks unexpectedly sold out completely, and according to Wizards of the Coast, is experiencing a surge in its player base. It is also being included in many examples of popular media. Popular examples might include its inclusion in the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. It has also made its appearance in many other TV shows, such as The Big Bang Theory, and even The Late Night Show hosted by Stephen Colbert, who is himself a player. This is not to mention the media that has been created using Dungeons & Dragons. This includes popular examples such as the podcast The Adventure Zone, as well as the TV show Harmon Quest. This also includes a wide variety of novels, such as the long-running series The Legend of Drizzt. However, Dungeons & Dragons was not always this popular. In fact, in the 1970s, it was reviled. This was largely due to the Satanic Panic, which was fueled by the case of James Egbert, who went missing and was later found to have committed suicide. A private detective hired by his parents apparently linked his death to playing Dungeons & Dragons. After that, a series of murders, suicides, and disappearances were all blamed on Dungeons & Dragons. The panic reached such fervor that one mother described D&D as a fantasy role-playing game which uses demonology, witchcraft, voodoo, murder, rape, blasphemy, suicide, assassination, insanity, sex perversion, homosexuality, prostitution, satanic-type rituals, gambling, barbarism, cannibalism, sadism, desecration, demon summoning, necromantics, divination, and other teachings in its games. However, this attitude largely disappeared in the 90s and left us with a wildly popular fantasy role-playing game.
So far, we have described the myriad of ways that Dungeons & Dragons has grown into the social phenomenon it is today. How then do we incorporate this social experience and a game into literature? The first question we have to ask ourselves is if a game itself is a text. As we've stated before, the core of Dungeons & Dragons is collaborative storytelling and building of a narrative. So then, if we consider oral storytelling a text, then we must consider Dungeons & Dragons a text. How far does this line of thinking go, though? Can we even consider the instructions for a game a text? World building is done both through the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. Both of these shape the rules of the universe and begin the creation of the characters that inhabit that universe. Furthermore, adventure books contain the outline for a story and set out guidelines for both player and Dungeon Master. These published books are integral to the playing of the game and are quite literally texts themselves. Players of Dungeons & Dragons have even gone on to create their own texts solely by recording their own gameplay sessions and distributing them in podcast form to millions of listeners. Notable examples of this are the Adventure Zone podcast,
McElroy's playing Dungeons & Dragons in a project we are tentatively calling
The Adventure Zone,
and Critical Role.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Critical Role, where a bunch of us nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons.
Dragons. Come on.
Sorry, I was...
To further complicate the issue, new texts are being generated from these podcasts of these games. The Adventure Zone podcast paved the way for graphic and textual recreations of games and the narratives that come with them. Following this trend, several new examples of young adult literature are being made based on Dungeons & Dragons adventures and podcasts. The propagation of these many types of texts goes to show the importance of Dungeons & Dragons in the pantheon of modern literature.
Given the widespread movement to incorporate new literacies in modern classrooms, let's think about how Dungeons & Dragons could be included in the classroom. One popular way in which Dungeons & Dragons have been included in the classroom is called Classcraft. This application is designed to take the structures of D&D, the quests, the experience, the motivating factors in the game, and apply it to the classroom to help motivate and encourage students to keep up with their coursework. This also provides teachers with a powerful tool for classroom management. However, many teachers believe that Dungeons & Dragons can be utilized beyond purposes such as management and motivation. In fact, many English teachers are using Dungeons & Dragons to expand the interactions that students have with the text. For example, many teachers can use D&D to present classic texts such as Beowulf in real time to students who can interact personally with the text in the form of characters. Using the rule sets of Dungeons & Dragons, students can experience firsthand what happens in a text with their own characters. Furthermore, D&D is an excellent way to explore topics such as fictional narratives, character creation, dialogue structuring, and world building. As digital literacy becomes a core part of our curriculum, D&D can even help here. An application called Roll20 provides an online space for students to record audio and video of themselves while playing Dungeons & Dragons. Incorporating this practice gives students experience with digital tools such as cameras, microphones, and editing software such as Audacity. To top it all off, students must learn to publish their content online. Already, a wide variety of ways to incorporate Dungeons & Dragons into the classroom exists. However, this medium is still being explored by teachers today. Given more time and research, I'm sure that we will find new ways to incorporate Dungeons & Dragons into our journey of developing new and relevant literacies with our students.